Guys, welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial series. Just trying to stay hydrated here because there is a lot to talk about. In the last episode, we basically went from zero with a new artwork, and I showed you guys how to clean it up and what you can do to prepare for the process. And then we started out pretty much in black and white and organized our layers so that everything is set up to have tonal control over the layers, and then do a first, which was I think a 2-pass gray on every layer, including choosing the light source and setting that up and being aware of everything. So today, in part 2, I want to show you guys how to paint, because you might think, okay, that's all fine, but we did up to now we just selected with a lasso and we set up the grayscale stuff and it looks okay, but when do we start painting? So first of all, I like you to think about what is painting, right? Because I could argue that the lasso tool is painting, because you're pretty much controlling the area with your hand, like with a brush, if you made a cutout. So there is stylistic choices there, and it's not pure editor work, so to speak. And also you could have done the same process just with a paintbrush. I just think that in the beginning that would take you longer to get a crispy result. So that's why I show you guys how to do it with the lasso tool. It's my preferred choice, and also I think it's more versatile, and you get a different look than if you do it with a paintbrush. And also then the question arises, which paintbrush do I use? And mostly you will be, in the beginning, you'll be using the hard round, and that will give you a lot of round edges, which is maybe not desirable. Then you have to erase against it, and so on and so forth. Therefore, we did mostly lasso tool stuff. So, but today we are going to start to paint even in grayscale, and then I will show you guys how to inject color and make a basic color pass. So let's jump into it. All right, so we're back in Photoshop. So you guys remember this. This was the result of part 1. And then now I pretty much want to refine this some more and then show you guys how we put color. But first, let's talk about the painting aspect of it, because now that we have set up the layers and we selected them to be basically a diorama that layers on top of each other and is non-transparent, we can actually start to do some painting. So first, let's see, we had this plan for the lighting, remember that? So when the lighting emits from this point above the horizon and then basically shines down in an angle from the globe, which is off screen, that is the sun, and then casts shadows. So what is missing from the scene? Because I want you to always, if you're stuck or if you don't know what to do next, the best question to ask yourself is always, what is the biggest thing, the most important thing that is missing right now? Is there anything missing? And then we bring it up right away. So firstly, let's see if there's something missing. And already I kind of told you last time that there is something missing, which is basically the shadows of the structures and the main object onto the surrounding area. That thing is missing, because of course, as you can see from those rays, from those construction lines emitting from the sun, of course this ship and also these buildings would cast shadows. Now we have those shadows a little bit baked into here from the buildings, because we chose a light side and we chose a shadow side. So naturally there is some shadows already in there, but the cast shadows are not yet there. So let's go ahead and do some of those. First of all, yeah, I'm going to do a little bit of more hard round brush painting. So I kind of, let's see first if I made good decisions over here. I think there is no light down here. So we can always correct stuff if we feel that we made a mistake. And then let's go into these buildings. Up to now we only have averaged a tone for an object, and then averaged a shadow tone. So we did not take into consideration up to now what is the actual material or the actual color and how that would change the grayscale image. So that is what we're going to do next, just before we introduce the color. So first, is there something here that needs to be done in terms of projected shadows? So maybe this tower here will cast a shadow, because if you follow the rays, we don't know exact the location, we just know it's behind this building. Everything else we do not know. And from the scale of the buildings, this building is even in front. So since light is coming from behind, could very well be that this is casting a shadow onto the side of this building. And if you have a chance to do such a shadow, it's a good idea, because it communicates something. It communicates that you understand that this is an issue, and it also communicates a certain influence of one object onto the other object, which is always nice. It gives your piece some depth and some credibility in terms of spatial awareness, I would say. So what we could do is, because this is casting down here, so at one point, let's see, it would be, yeah, maybe let's even do it like this, because I can now a little bit choose where I do this, since this is not, so if I would do this, then you can see that that could make sense. But what I don't want to do is I don't want to destroy this shadow, this light border from the building and from the structure itself. So maybe that's not the best choice. You can do that somewhere else. For example, here, maybe even higher. I'm going to cheat a little bit, because you see that the measurement will tell me to do that just a slight tinge higher, but I don't want to do this. Don't want to cover up this window completely. So therefore, maybe do it like this, and then add to that like so. Let's see how this would work out. Yeah, I think that works. It's not bad. It shut me out of controls for a second there. And then we can, of course, counter paint what we don't like, and stuff that is very small, we don't need to represent it always. So like this rod on top of the church tower, maybe we don't really need to see it all that clearly. So yeah, this could be one thing. Now also I realized that of course in here there will be see-through area, which I did not tolerate. Not tolerate. What is the word? I did not account for in the previous session. So yeah, it would be something like this. Have to make sure that this makes sense. Let me think. Yeah, cap gets I think bigger as we go. Yeah, because like the offset, of course, it gets bigger towards like the outside of the image, so you can see through it more or less depending on the overlap. So what else is there? I think this tree needs some illumination up here. Now this will get a little bit of just pure painting. I cannot always say something incredibly clever to that, but what I'm trying to do is make this thing more credible before we move forward. So I'm asking myself, is this are these good choices? For example, what you can see here with the structure, it would be nice to see this again over here. I think give you some kind of a focal point almost. Let's see. And then there's the grain, which maybe stays dark, so it could be like this, right? So I want some shadowy area because I think that just creates a nice atmosphere. Also now, since I did not lock the layer, I could draw outside of the layer, which I need to be careful, mindful about. So then I will bring some more, and sometimes you'll switch this off and see what is a nice potential. For example, here you could have something, some kind of a detail that will show later once you do away with the sketch, because sketch, it sometimes clogs up visibility towards the finer details. So if I want to paint dark onto here, I need to then lock the layer, obviously. And now what I don't want is to go too much, just too much into detail. So this is what I did now. It's almost too much. I need to bring the big stuff out first. And one thing that is nice is how you can see through this right now. So that's good. And you can also choose now to tune down the intensity of the sketch so that you see more of the painting and less of the sketch. Because remember, the sketch is really just your game plan, your roadmap on what you want to do. And once you did that, you basically no longer need it. Unless it's a stylistic choice for you to keep stuff in the sketch. So I said it wrong, to keep the sketch in the final image, in the final product. So that could be your plan, but unless that is what you want, and then you probably made a better sketch anyways, a little bit more detailed and more refined. But it's not the case for what I'm doing here. So yeah, that's going to be fine. Now, as for the shadows onto the surrounding, what we need for that is we need the light plan again. So, and then I might not want to put the shadow for now on the same layer. So what is the logical choice is to put it underneath, right? So I create a new layer, and then I might select some shadow areas, which I think could become shadows. And then, so basically everything that is next to like that water border, it will cast a shadow, because light is coming from behind. We already established that. Therefore, shadow will cast in front of things. And also, when this stuff is very high, of course, that angle now is a rather shallow angle. So this building will cast a shadow off camera, basically. So it will not, it's not like with the reflection where this will cast a shadow like this, because a light direction is not this, it's much more shallow from here. So this will not happen. But what will happen is that what is immediately close to the water surface, like this, that will of course cast a shadow, but it's also like a long, very long shadow that goes back to this space on the horizontal plane, which is the water. However, these edges here, they will cast much longer shadow, because like there's a structure here and then there's some trees here. And also we don't need to be super accurate and mathematical about it. We just need to average this to be believable. So every structure that comes out here, I want to account for with a bit of a shadow. So yeah, let's see how this turns out. Like this, it will come out, I guess. And then the tree, maybe tree towards here could be the case. And maybe I'm exaggerating already, maybe like as a shadow for the tree, because we're going here, so the tree needs to hit here somewhere, the water surface. But it's a shallow angle, remember that. So the shadow will give some grounding to this, and I'm not yet sure about how strong the shadow will be. But since it's daylight, it will not be a super black shadow. It will more be kind of a transparent shadow. And now you also see that on this side, when we established the light source with some of these red lines, you can also see that the shadow will play much more of a role here, because here you can see actually that the angle changes a lot, because we're going to this center of a vanishing point, and then, for example, this tree, it will cast a shadow more towards that direction. So it's going to be more like this, and then you would see, you only will see the top, because of course that building that is quite a bit behind, it will cast a shadow too. But we already established that there is light shining onto the tree, therefore the distance is enough, and sunlight is fairly steep. So yeah, so the shadow of this building will end somewhere in the environment and not on the water surface. However, here there's a lot of stuff which will also create shadows. Maybe this is a little bit closer. Maybe at some point there comes in this building, and I think we kind of accounted for this here. So one building would be maybe this, and then second one would be this. So kind of close to what we established with the red lines. And then you would see stuff like, let's see, now this is becoming a little bit tricky, because this is off here. This would be a reflection more like on this side. So yeah, you would not be able to distinguish this too much from the tree even. So and then maybe this stuff will reflect over here. I'm saying reflect, but I really mean shadow cast. I'm sorry. So maybe let's get a little bit of coffee. Yeah, anyways, so shadow of a tree over here, then shadow of that wall structure, and then of that surrounding area. Now remember, we can refine this. This is not set in stone. Just as we do this, so if you worry that you might get it wrong or it's too complicated, just try it out. And if it's really too complicated, maybe set up a different light that is not so as hard for you to understand, because it's not good if you can't wrap your head around things and then you basically give up, you move forward in the image, and then later you find out, oh, I did a ton of mistakes and now it's a nightmare to correct, basically, because the more you move forward, the more it's hard to correct stuff. So if everything is in a simple state right now, so we can make corrections pretty easily. Now let's see how this turned out. So yeah, I'm just hiding the selection again, which you can always do. You can also change it. You can also add to it later where there was clearly something missing. Maybe I'm doing a little bit of an Easter egg here. Cutting this out could be good. Let's see. So yeah, we have a shadow. Shadow is not as dark. If we want to check for darkness, we can do that. Either just with brightness or again with the levels. Will be only one spike. But now you can see, if I make the shadow too dark, it will disintegrate. Not disintegrate. It will not integrate into the image. So it shouldn't be as dark, in my opinion, here in daytime on the water surface as the darkest shadow in those structures are. So we'll make that a little bit lighter. Yeah, so just a little bit darker than I initially made it. And then you can see that the reflection is even lighter than that, which makes sense because there's a lot of light reflecting from the water surface. And reflection is generally always a dimmed down version of the original. You can never reflect 100% because you have stuff that's in the way, like atmosphere, particles. Also, that material is never perfect. It's never 100% reflective, even if it's water. So for now, we have that as a shadow, and now I can also add to that via painting. If I feel like there needs to be stuff that is darker around here, I can easily add that, because it's also about I want something that looks subjectively also good, not only makes the perfect logical sense, but it also needs to be appealing. So we're trying to do a little bit of both here. It should make sense ideally, and also just work and be pleasing to look at. So it chose a lighter color there by accident. Sometimes not what you want. And you can also now erase stuff from here. Example, I'm thinking maybe this is what happens here. That would be cool. That too steep? Yeah, kinda. So again, I'm giving small hints that I understand what could be happening here. But then again, that is a very steep angle, and maybe that's not even realistic to do it. So you can't always force it. I think it's not happening, because look how steep that angle is. Yeah, it's not really what would happen. So now And I can, on the same surface now, I can put shadows of structures. So one of the main questions here, put this underneath the ship structure, is where is the ship, and where is the shadow of the ship. So the ship is behind the structures. I established this with that little hint here. Just the wing being overlapped by a structure in the front means I'm putting it in the back. Tonally, I'm also lowering contrast, which means it's in the back, which also means it's bigger. It's much bigger than you think, which is a neat side effect that you want to communicate. So in this case, I think, even though I really want to show a shadow, I think you would not see it, because I think it would take place, it would hit here somewhere and then be around this area behind the structure, or it would slightly affect the structure here. But even that I don't think will be the case, because yeah, we really want this ship to be in the back quite a bit. So yeah, let's not have this affect this structure area. However, now that I speak about it, it would be cool though if the small ship would be closer, which would make the big ship even bigger, and then you have the feeling that there is a proximity between the ship and maybe humans standing here, and that would basically strengthen the narrative that you will have. There's a kind of a contact of a person to this object. So to achieve that, we need to up contrast for this ship so that it will be perceived as being more forward. So we have 2 passes of gray, so we can always bring that up. It's really not hard to do. And now you see, if I move the gray closer to this grays, it will come together. So in theory, what I'm doing here, I'm changing the scale of the ship without it even being changed, because logically, if I bring it closer, I say, because it's closer now and it occupies the same space, it is smaller automatically, if you can follow that thought. If I put the same structure on the horizon and make it barely contrast, that would mean it's just very, very far away, and it's huge. So the tonal control is very important for communicating distance and where the object is located at, because now you can see that, you can feel that this is in front of this, and then this is maybe slightly in front or on the same level, because again, I'm planning the ship to be more of a brighter reflective material, so that could now already make sense like this. So if it does make sense, as always, don't forget to save your image, okay? So or save even iterations if you feel like that's a problem. So now this has a reflection, big ship has a reflection. I could now say that there is a shadow of that smaller ship. Could be, let's see, yeah, hitting around here, maybe that's a good idea. With the wing that will give it away, and with that wing structure and that fin that will also give it away, I think. So now let's see, will look something like this. See if it works. Yeah, kind of works. So, and you can see if you could stretch this, or not stretch it, but you can also cut stuff out and then do a slight replacement, so to make it a little bit more clear in regards. Yeah, shadow wise, this fits pretty much from the angle that fits, so could do it like this, and then have there even be bit of a difference to the other the rest of the shadow, so that you can just make out the contours vaguely of the ship. So I think that helps it. And then once you have that, we combine it with the other shadows again. Now there's a one shadow layer, and what is a nice side effect is now that there is a new layer for you to show you this. There's also a kind of a convergence of stuff going on here. There's this little ship, there's the people, there's the shadow, and then there's the reflection, and this reflection is pointing in, and this fin is pointing in. So what that gives you is a very strong focal point, because we always look where stuff is converging. Where there's a lot going on, we look, it's a point of interest. And then where there's not a lot going on, like over here in the shadows, or over here on the mountain, or here in the shadow, or off a center where there's only reflections repeating, our brain understands this, that this is a more calm area. So this is also a good side effect, and also this helps all of that. You have here the water surface is only showing here, so, and then you have a lot of intrusion via object going on here. So this is a good thing. This means this is where people will look. And then the second thing they will look is something like this, where there is something overlapping and communicating depth and relation of objects in space. So, and then here of course you have overlapping stuff, and then so you kind of wander from here to here, I think, and then you might go back and look at the ship, because that's interesting, and that is more not what you see every day. So yeah, there is then secondary focal points, but I think it's pretty good to have this, all of this stuff going on here in the center. So now we have two passes of gray, and at one point we should start painting, right? Not only with the last one, well, I did this a little bit, but now at one point we have to leave these perfect tones. And what I mean by that is that you have a perfect gray here and then have a brighter one, and you do not mix them, right? And at one point you have to mix them, because now we have to ask ourselves, what is brighter than something else, which that is the next logical question. So we know that trees are dark, the leaves absorbing light, so trees are dark, and then the facades are probably more bright than the trees, so we need to account for that even in grayscale. So I will just do some more changes on this. Also, I realized that I did not respect the shape of that tree maybe as well as I should have. So you can always rectify this, of course, by just counter painting. And again, I'm doing lasso because it's just fast. I could do paintbrush, but then you see I getting the round edges, and having too much of round edges that's really not my style, and I want to have a more defined outlines than just these round blobs everywhere. Of course, you could do that with a different brush, but then you will have the problem. Let's take a rectangular brush just to make a point, and then, well, it's not actually rectangular. So let's take this angles, right? So now I'm getting the same thing with angles, and then if I don't want that angle, then what? So the brush choice is a very stylistic choice. Now I will move towards a more transparent approach. So you could do this also with the hard round brush. You could say I want this facade to be lighter, therefore I want both tones to be brighter, right? So it would be, I could paint them both brighter, but then I would do the same painting again that I already did, which is kind of stupid if you think about it. So we're only in grayscale, which means we don't have to take color into consideration at all for now. So I would just take something that is transparent and that is brighter and then just go over that. So the brightest would be that. Needed to be brighter than that. So now if I choose something bright, that's fine, but it will cover up everything since I'm still on the hard round. So if I don't want that to happen, I can manually tone down opacity, something that I hate, because that is really not what you should be doing most of the time with a tablet that has pressure sensitivity. But it will work. It will make both of those tones brighter. But now if I release the pen, put it down again, it will overlap transparently 50% and do this again and again, which doesn't feel very much in control. So I don't like this approach. And also I cannot just push and make it more or less. Now this is too much. So for that to work, I then need to undo this and then do it with less again, and so on and so forth. Does this work? Yes, but it's not desirable for me personally. So what I would do is I would do it with a softer brush. So what's the difference here? Difference is that this brush has a pressure sensitivity, whereas the other one, the hard round, does not. Let's see, where is it? Doesn't show me now. Okay. So I had the hard round before, and the hard round does not have pressure sensitivity, therefore there is no buildup to it. So use something with a pressure sensitivity also. Why do you make this bigger for me? Now I can go really bright, but I can control with my pen pressure. So for example, on here, now I wonder why it works so bad, is because, see, that is the problem with that. Now I'm still on 25% opacity, and that like takes away greatly from the ability to utilize pressure sensitivity. So you want this on 100% pretty much always, because now I can overlap this nicely. And even extend into something like this. Just making parts of that structure brighter. So A is still a little bit too much. So we have to be very careful here on what we're doing. So I'm still selecting a tone that I think is appropriate. Making it brighter, but also I don't want it to be too bright, and I don't want it to be the same brightness everywhere, because now there's also the question of is there something overlapping in terms of plants, vegetation, and then that would be darker anyways. And then I want the roofs to be a darker tone in general. So what we do is, and also in the window, it would remain pretty much darker in the window, And then over here maybe we'll have it much brighter. See how this turns out. Now if I want, I can take from, you can still take color from here, so that I know that I'm not overshooting via pressure at these tones that I'm aiming for. So for example, I'm going back to making this dark inside of the windows. Maybe there's also some reflection that is then very bright in the window. So this could be that if a window pointed much upwards, then there would be at one point the reflection of the sky. Here it could be the same thing. Of course, on top it would be more like shadows, but then in the glass you would maybe see a reflection of the surroundings. So we could already resemble that a little bit. And then of course we can just make stuff brighter that we think will be brighter eventually, and then keep the other stuff dark, and then make nuances to it, because that's what we did not do last time and before. There was no nuance to this. But all the nuance is good and fine, but you should not nuance everything, because for example, if you have shadows combining, that is sometimes is a good thing. Like over here, I'm not going to separate all these tones, because that just creates a very hectic image, and you can't look everywhere. That's not it's not a good thing to have. So I want to keep some of this like connected. That's so not everywhere will be tone separation. Maybe this is darker because it's like natural, and then we can make this darker from the tree over here. Tree in general can remain kind of a little bit darker. You can still make the tree much darker. There's still a shadow area that is not accounted for. But let's go and do this evenly. So we need a little bit of tonal difference here, over here, maybe here. And then I would say let's see how much we want to do here. Not that much, I figure. So let's do it like this. Then here there's some stones. We'll reflect some, we'll bounce some lighting maybe. And then now there's time to have a darker tone, even darker tone than that. And then do some stuff that is really getting much darker. Not much, but and this could be also done. You can at any point basically go back to the lasso and say I need now a crispy bigger area, and I say crispy because I'm referring to that those borders now that I'm creating that are very harsh edges, right? So you will see the definition there. And then maybe you want to add even structures which are darker than the rest. Let's see how this could work. And then have some of kind of shadows from some of these objects underneath the tree. You will have something there. Let's see. Well, maybe this is all dark. It will connect the tree. So, and that is basically where you start the real separation of tones, and also the painting in, I would say, the classical sense, that you let stuff happen, that you express what has not been there, what was maybe just a thought until now. That stuff, you can do it now. You're just not doing it in color, you do it in grayscale. Over here, I need more darkness. Let's see. There's a lot of structures that will cast a little bit of a shadow underneath them, or in between some inserts in the material, in the stone. These you can always make them a little bit darker. What you will get is more of a 3D really rendered effect once you lay it down. I will show you in a second. Make this basically even deeper of an image. This tree, if I erase the sketch, you will not see this tree right now, because all the tones are connected. They're all the same tone. So I need some kind of separation to communicate that, because the sketch will be gone at one point, and then I still want there to be the notion of some tree branches and just something. Not everything needs to be there. We can imagine some of it, but if I just have the top of the tree illuminated like that, it will not be enough to do that. So, and then in here, there will be, that is basically a little bit of a structure from this from these stone railings. And here I will be getting more artistic, meaning I will just leave some of the tones combined no matter the logic, because I have enough logic applied already to the image. The image cannot be just like a math project, like geometry. It's not what art is. So we need to also take some freedom where we can, to really make this more compelling, other than it being purely logical. So yeah, this process can, of course, you can do it via painting. In a second I will switch back to a brush. This just makes this faster. And also I really like to have very defined silhouettes of objects. It's very readable. It's very movie-like when you, depending on where you place the light source, stuff will just silhouette against the background. It's basically 80% of Hollywood lighting in a nutshell. It's just silhouetting via lighting that is not really there in most cases in the real world. If you like, it's very funny, because if you think about these movie shots in the forest, there's always light sources and that should not be there, and that's just to silhouette the trees from the character, from the background. Because if you have black, if you really have just black, like, you can't see anything. You cannot make out the character running through the woods or anything like that. So you need passive lights, tons of passive lights in the back. So they're having huge spotlights, huge passive lights, all of that stuff, just to illuminate a lot of the scene in a pretty unrealistic manner. But guess what? You're not questioning it, because it's an exaggeration of reality. It's not that it's not possible. Maybe if, like, the sky is clear and there's moonlight, there's a little bit of bounce light in the forest, but just not as much as they put. So be aware of that. It's all a lie. Yeah, so it's not what we're doing here, by the way. We're not creating a lie. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just we need to take some artistic liberation. Because the real world is not as compelling. If you have a snapshot of your vacation, maybe you will always realize this. You will always look at it later, and then it will be a normal photograph, be lit normally, but you were there and you saw maybe a light effect created by the weather, and then you look at that photograph and you feel like, this was much better in reality. Whether that's true or not, or it's just much better in your brain, is another question. But what it tells you is that reality, just a cold image of reality, is not always that compelling. I think we need some bushes here, and then a little bit of more structure in here. Yeah, okay, I'll not do everything with that. Leave some to painting with brushes. And you can also not do everything with a lasso. Just want to make that perfectly clear. That's just, we're still at the beginning, because I do a lot of talking here, and we're still at the beginning of this image. Because had I not explained so much of the setup and of the process, this would be like maybe half an hour in, or 45 minutes in, and not like it is right now. I think we're past the 2 hour mark. Yeah, so just be aware of that. It's not like this is all a super tedious process. It is if you're trying to explain everything at the same time, which I'm going to be honest is also it is harder to concentrate. So let's see. I said I needed a darker shadow. So now let's bring that darker shadow. You can see that it's good. I like it. Okay. Now, you see, I made it was like this, and then we made it like this, which is not bad. Now you can see that there's much more stuff is readable over here. The tree is there without the sketch. Slowly everything comes together even without the sketch, which that is the plan. So now I still feel that some of these structures should be brighter. So let's try that. So this here I'm not too happy with. I think a lot of this stuff should be brighter. Yeah. It also doesn't need to be super consistent now, because there's different lights from that are maybe influenced by the clouds or by weather effects, and then it's not always the same brightness everywhere. So don't think that it has to be. Thinking about these rocks, if they should be brighter or not. Yeah, I don't think so. And then we can just take tones from the environment and then keep painting with these tones. Also, if we feel that dark that we put here, where do I get this? Okay, let's have it a clean selection. So this I can utilize, for example, to make the entire tree darker. If I feel that is what is actually missing. Oftentimes we make these trees too bright. Because they absorb a ton of light, so you shouldn't make them too bright by default. So now you can see that a lot of this stuff here is still a little bit too bright. You cannot distinguish it too much from the background. Yeah. It's coming together. So sometimes if you miss something, go back to the harder round brush and then just paint some rock shadows like I did over here. Where is one more? Here would be here. Or can make some smaller stuff appear. And then slowly also maybe get more detail. But you have to be careful with that, because what you don't want to do at this point is zoom in and just try to be very detailed. Try to be a lot of people associate that with doing art, which is really not. Because if you look at all the best artists, they do not zoom in. Even on the canvas, they stand back and they paint little strokes and see if they integrate. It's not good to zoom in and lose focus on the entire image. That's not very really what a good artist does. So you have to, if that's what you think, you have to reevaluate that, in my opinion. So you can switch back and forth between different brushes. And then this will take some time, as you can see. This will take some time because you want to really think about now how this makes sense tonally, and it should look You should start to look like black and white photography almost. And sometimes I would even switch off that that sketch to just see how you control this environment here, and that if you bring something new and if it's good or not, because the sketch is doing a lot. Or we can tune down the sketch further. And also be careful that you're not painting on the sketch itself. It's something that happens in the beginning where you forget to switch layers. And all of a sudden you're painting this stuff into the sketch, and then you have a problem. So all of that happened to me, of course. That's how I know. And now at this point, I'm just taking what I think is a good idea, is a good color, and I just go with it. And whenever I don't like the sketch, I will switch it off. Whenever I feel like that sketch is not doing it for me, or I need to see something, what's behind here. So for example, this now needs to come, this railing was not strong. So, right, like that. And then in between here, there are plants that are growing on the side wall. And some of them I want, well, I have them in the sketch, but they're not so readable as of right now in the final image. So then I can go back here and then create. Now I'm doing what I did with the lasso, just with the paintbrush. See how I'm doing smaller shapes, which it works, but still it's, you have to decide for yourself if that is the look that you're going for. We're having a railing here, and then kind of had something here. Let's do this with a harder brush, maybe like so, and then we can really define this for once. That seems like it was too much. And then, well, there are details in here, and we want details in here, but that just means that you have to work a little bit more for those details. So can you see it? Does it make sense? Slowly it will, but it's going to be a process. Well, this is too dark. So it's not as easy as just to make it appear. Of course, I'm not saying any of this to do it on a high level is super easy, because obviously it's not, right? But now what you can see is, because we made a good choice for the foundation, that now I can do smaller and smaller stuff, and it makes sense, because I don't need to worry about the foundation being wrong or anything. So taking that time to build up the foundation is really something that it will benefit you greatly. You can't understate that, I think. Now you can see this is really, we're now really painting. So this is no longer just a lasso action or anything. We're yeah, doing smaller structures, and it will come together, but it will take a little bit of time. And you can see where I painted too softly, now I'm getting sometimes a little problem because it's not readable. So for example, I did not do anything to account for this window here. And then there was supposed to be 2 windows here. So at one point, right, they need to manifest in the actual thing. And then I need to also consider where there is maybe a shadow or another plant. So this would be and then of course we can switch back and forth between the hard brush and the softer brush, and that is a good idea in case because sometimes you feel like I need that oomph to the brush. I need I need a harder edge, but other times you just want to blend over stuff, and then you use just the soft brush. For example, I want to tone this edge down. I'm using soft brush now. So, but then to make these windows structures is oftentimes it's too little of an impact. So I want more. So I'm going straight away for a harder brush. So there's something that I want you to be aware of, which is that if you're always working with a soft brush and then even tuning it down in opacity, you will never get a nice tone separation. Everything will turn out muddy, and that's not good. So you have to be aware that you cannot be soft all the time. You need to have decisions, and those also manifest in clear brush strokes. And if they don't, then you will not have a compelling image. That is not, in this case, that's not something I consider even an artistic choice. It's just something that doesn't work. You cannot be vague about everything. That doesn't work. And in fact, most good famous artists are the opposite. They are not vague, they're bold. They're always bold, and they do it in their own style and in an maybe exaggerated way, but that's what makes them great and recognizable. It's not being careful, and it's not being indecisive, which basically that's what it is. If you're just doing soft brush strokes all the time, you're indecisive. Else you would do the decision with one bold stroke and that would be it. So hypothetical you, of course. I'm not criticizing anybody in particular here, but that's just what I see a lot of times. So yeah, let's struggle a little bit more together here, because you can see that yeah, sometimes I'm second guessing myself, and that's fine. You just need to also take your time, right? This is not something you can hurry or so. So I will not do, for example, all of the detail that I would do off camera. Maybe I'm adding some off camera to next time. I'm not sure about this yet, because on the other hand, I want you to see pretty much everything I'm doing. But it again makes it a little bit harder for me, because also I want you at the end, I want this image to be compelling, because else you guys will go, oh yeah, thanks, but that's not really worth it for me, right? So of course, there needs to be both. There needs to be quality and a learning experience, I feel, because the one is basically justifies the other in a sense. So let's see what I can do over here. And then we have a choice to make very soon in this image, and that choice is always the same choice. When do I leave this alone? So when am I done with this process? And there's two answers to that, and one is never, and the other is, and the one that we're looking for is never. I mean, in the sense that you can always do more, but really the answer you want is you're done when you decide. So that's very crucial, because if you never decide, you're never done. That's just the nature of this game, especially in Photoshop, because in Photoshop you can always do more, and you don't have a technical, a physical limit to what you can do, like you would have in oil. You can only pile so much oil color, and you can only amount so much watercolor, and then it will just saturate your paper and you're done. You cannot undo this. So in Photoshop, fortunately and unfortunately, we can undo everything. But yeah, I think most people know what that results in, and that is sometimes intense struggle, and you cannot decide whether you're done or not. So it's not only a blessing, is what I'm saying. Again, sometimes you need to see what you're doing. Turn off that sketch. And now we can do also even more bold stuff. So we could do blending. Let's maybe do this in a second. This will be very interesting later if I whether I can really maintain this, because it's getting I feel that my decision making is kind of impaired, because I have to think what to talk about, but for now it still works. We're hanging in there, and I think maybe that's the reason why so little people and artists do this, because it's insanely distracting. Because what artists like to do usually is just sit them back in their own room and just listen to music and paint, and not be distracted by anything. And that is very, very understandable, because a lot of the artistic process you cannot explain where it comes from. Of course, what we're talking about now is not that. That is the stuff that you can explain and that you can make sense of, and then you apply it. But there is still some magic I cannot explain to you while I'm doing each one of these lines. There is a basic understanding of the world, and a personal preference that is floating into this, and that you cannot resemble it. And so there's always that aspect of painting, where you put something just because you feel like it, and it's not really justifiable by logic alone, let's say it like that. So yeah, we have to be aware. We have to have both. It has to make sense, especially if you're doing this for any kind of commercial industry, for your job or anything. You will be measured logically, and in a matter of whether it makes sense or not. But you will also be measured, um, and that's more really subconsciously. You will be measured by your artistic choices also, and then that is no denying that. But it's not something that people can communicate to you very well, but it will still happen. So yeah, at a certain point here, we have to call it, because I can't have this video to be 3 hours long. I mean, I could. Now that's something people actually do these days, to have videos be extremely long. But I'll tell you what, this process that we did today, I have to do this some more before we can insert the color, because I could insert the color right now, but you can see that there's stuff that I haven't done that I really want to experiment with, which is, for example, I need to paint the ship, and also I need to paint some of the background, some of the mountains. So let's do a little bit more of that, but I think I will do some of that also off camera. So basically, yes, we need to do the same thing. Now going to the ship itself, we need to decide if there is what material there is, and I'm going to say, let's keep it simple. Let's have there be the same material for a majority of the structure, and then maybe have different material in certain parts. That is usually leads to something compelling, because you could imagine that there's some components are matte, with a matte finish, like on a car, like the bumper, like the tires, some plastic parts, and then the paint job is reflective, and it has its own color, or it's just chrome, it's just metal. I think this will be somewhat of a reflective thing, maybe yeah, for sure a metal, and then there will be parts that are matte, and the matte parts will be the parts that are going to be darker most of the time, because they reflect less of the sunlight, and then they reflect, no, I'm sorry, it's the other way around. The yeah, no, I was right. The matte stuff, it reflects less of the sunlight, so it doesn't get as bright. Whereas the metal part, it reflects a lot of sunlight, and it also reflects a lot of shadow. So the contrast in the metal part is much higher than in the matte part, and the matte part is more subdued in the bright parts. So if you want to try this out, you can do it, and I'm showing you something new right now that we also need when we put in the color. So I'm creating a new layer, and then you're going to right click here, and you're going to say you create a clipping mask. So the clipping mask, if you successfully created it, it will have an arrow pointing down towards the layer that it refers to. So what that means is you can now only paint on this clipping mask where there's already something on the other layer that is referring to. There is the foundation for the clipping mask. The clipping mask, don't be fooled by the name. other than it being called a mask, it's really just a normal layer with any blending effect that you want. So, quick display. That's what it means to be a clipping mask. If it's not a clipping mask, it would be like this, right? So, but since we already did the work on here, we don't want to draw this outline again and have this problem and waste that time. So create a clipping mask and never have this problem. Now we're still in grayscale. Still in grayscale, and I need now a darker tone than this because I was talking about something that is darker. Let's see as a comparison. Maybe we even have something like this tone. And then I'll just try to paint some parts darker. For example, maybe this is darker. And then maybe the nose is darker. Maybe more of the nose is darker. So you see where this is going. This is going to be a little bit of a design issue here. It's not only about logic. We now have to make a decision, design decision, and that sometimes it takes some time. So it could be that, for example, there's dark indent here, and then you can see inside the ship. Also, it's very possible that you can see inside here, and then there's light coming out. I kind of already hinted at that. So parts that are darker could be this, and now I can erase against that if it just lets me use my quick keys, for example. For some reason it's not so happy with me using that. So right, it could mean that. And these are accents now. I don't want everything to be like this. Maybe a little bit here. And I'm not painting a shadow now. I'm just painting what I think will be the material, the matte material. So it's making this darker, and it's also making the bright area here darker. Let's see, maybe reaching inside here, it could be the case. And then maybe this is connected, right, like this. So I think this is already this is getting on my nerves now. Sometimes this control over, I have hotkeys on the vacuum tablet, and sometimes they just bug out. Yeah, like they do right now. Anyway, so I'm not sure yet if I like this complete nose to be bright. Maybe we do just like an area around it. Maybe it's like this. I think it's more compelling. So yeah, it would be something like this. Now we created like a Can either call that a clown nose or a pig nose. Not sure which one. Yeah, keep it like this, because that is much more like a bird's beak, and that is actually not such a bad thing. I would say this is yeah, I can see that. Maybe we do this over here to do an area like this. So yeah, I'm not a renowned spaceship designer, so you have to bear with me to give me a break. If that is not the best spaceship that you ever saw, I'm sorry. So as for the parts, I think that's good. Now what we can do is see if we like brightness of this and contrast. So do we want it to be darker? If it's darker, you can immediately see that it pushes the ship forward again because of just of the atmospheric perspective. It comes forward with contrast, with raising the contrast. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to raise the contrast too much, which means I really want to have this be a tone in tone thing. So maybe even like this, not too harsh. And for this you can also make seconds. You can say, okay, I want another iteration of this. And in the second iteration, we don't have this. This just stays the same, and then we make this dark. The entire thing, we make it dark. And then maybe we also don't have this. And then maybe we do one around here. Maybe it's like that. I put down the brush. Since it's transparent, it's giving me a problem. You could see that. So just trying this out. What it looked like, something like this is pretty good actually. A little bit of the pig nose effect, but not too much. So yeah, I could also work with that. I kind of like this. So you see, again, we have to make a big decisions first, and then later it gets more and more into the details. Well, maybe it's both. When in doubt, zoom out. So look at the thumbnail, and maybe that helps decide which one is better. What I see in the thumbnail is something pretty telling that I was not aware of. And what I see is that the nose in the thumbnail looks much more like a hole. So what that means is that it takes away from the shape, or it changes the perception of the shape from being like this more to being like this. The question is now, do we want that, and does that get worse or better with color? I think it will get better with color, but nonetheless it would be an argument for this version. So yeah, I think I like this version better. It's a little bit also more tastefully done. And we can break the nose a little bit by doing this. So now created a new shape, and then there will be, of course, a darker area here in here, which is fine. So this in the small version looks much better, so I can do that. So yeah, I would say this is overall a good idea to do. And then once I know that, I will delete the other layer. There's no point holding on to something that you decided is not as good as the other thing. So now, once we have that, we can combine these layers, but let's make this an example of how you can also proceed. So you could as well make now shadows on this ship, like more of the shape shadows, because it will be darker here than here. This will not all be the same. It takes some rendering now in grayscale. So we also could do this on a clipping mask, because you can stack these clipping masks, and these clipping masks still goes down to this foundation layer, and it doesn't matter how many you have, this will always work. So now I'm doing more of a shadow, and I'm just making sure that I'm not darker than this shadow, and I will be painting transparent, and therefore if I have this tone that I know from a reference from the surrounding area, I don't want it to be any darker than that. That is a good tone to select and then to paint, because no matter how hard I push, I will not get darker than this. And I can now even see, once it manifests, that this is even too dark for me. So what I really want is, I want something even less dark. So now it needs to be darker than this, because it needs to be able to dominate this other tone. So yeah, maybe go back to this. Yeah, somewhat like, yeah, this is good enough. So okay, so once we have that, now remember, we're on a new layer. You cannot destroy anything now, unlike what I did here, where I painted everything on the same layer, which probably gave you a heart attack. You don't have to do that, but it's also not the, it's also, it doesn't matter that much, because you can always still change it, because we're still in grayscale, and it's still easy to change any of those decisions over here. So just keep that in mind. That is not, you're not committing unreasonably to these, to doing all the grayscale in one layer. So let's see. I could now get my soft brush and do something like this. Right? Give this a little bit of a shape, a little bit of a passive shadow. I could do that, and I'm looking over here if this makes sense, and it does make sense for now. You can do also the opposite. You can do brighter blending. Now I need to look if this makes sense without the sketch. And yeah, be careful with that, because you can see that this was already too much glow. So you want maybe to have this a little bit, but not too much. Also, once I do this, once I paint this shadow, I have the problem that everything is soft in this area, and I cannot easily counter paint without creating a lot of visual noise. So for now, what I want to do is, I want to just have some shadow where I think there will be shadow, but at the same time not overdo it, because there's really nothing worse than overdoing shadow like this, and it doesn't need to be soft either. If it's you could also do this as a hard shadow pass, and then just later soften it up. That will work too. So example, another clipping mask. Now this would be, and maybe let me also show you this. This would be the case where I introduce something that is not as just a basic round brush. So, for example, I have something more crazy here. Let's see. So if I put this down, it will do something like this, right? It will give a structure to the thing and will go crazy. But you can see that this, it introduces noise, and it also introduces shapes, and it's also pretty big. And you might say, if you don't have a lot of experience, what the hell are you doing with this? And the very short answer to that is, I'm making it less boring, because I need to have some kind of a feeling of a structure here in a material, and I can always counter paint that. Oh no, I'm sorry, counter erase that. So the parts where I don't want it, I will just erase it. So, but what that will give me is a very different result from that brush that I just used before. It will have more of an attitude. It will do some shapes and some accidents that you did not see coming. But I want you to think of that as a good thing sometimes. And also, what you do need is, you need experience to use a brush like this. You need to know how this brush behaves, because it behaves very erratic. So this is a brush that I want only to make, let's say, I wanted to make accidents that are good accidents, and that are kind of resemble, or not resemble, but put emphasis on the, like, the characteristic of what we want, or what we have here. So and also you can paint over this with even different brushes, and you can also use all the brushes together. Like, you can still use the round soft brush, and I can now switch to maybe an even different brush, which that brush is more of a hard brush, but it's not a round brush now. So let's do a little bit of painting with that, reminding myself where I want it to be the darkest, which is over there. So yeah, maybe this is really inside of the thing. And then we paint the wings darker a little bit. Now I need to sometimes improvise with the tone, because some of the very small dark areas, I want them to be even darker, and therefore I kind of need the plan of not using anything darker than a certain tone is an overall plan. That is something that you have to decide it, let's say, to not break this atmospheric perspective of the object, right? Not to bring it too much forward. But that does not mean that sometimes there's small stuff that can be a little bit darker, where there is an indent or where you can see inside of the object. Sometimes you need a little bit of more darkness even. So yeah. And now I'm slowly also, in some sense, I'm also deviating from the sketch. Still respected a fair bit, but there is a point where the initial plan of the sketch does not give me an answer to which tones I should apply here now. So, and in those cases, I really need to improvise. So I want there be a material, like an end to a certain material. I need to now really decide for myself. Same way, if I want, for example, this little designy number here to appear, I need to, my sketch doesn't give me an answer for the tones. It also didn't give me an answer what is matte and what is reflective, and that stuff you need to decide it later. So there is no real answer in the sketch for that kind of stuff. You need to experiment with that. Can be measuring color, and then, for example, also you could select an area and soften the area. For example, maybe I don't want this to be a hard edge. If that is the case, I can use a soft brush and then I counterpaint that to be softer. And the reason why I'm doing it in a selection, I think you can guess, is because it doesn't affect the surrounding area. Now this is a rounded piece, and then the next thing retains its hard edges. So that's really also what I want. Sometimes you can blend softer, but you have to be, as I said it before, you have to be careful with the soft stuff. Not everything can be soft all the time. It will now see this glow is already overdoing it by a lot. So it can't be all soft. As a matter of fact, I'm staying away from the soft brush as much as I can. So all of these little shadows, indents, I'm painting them first without a soft brush, because I want edges to happen, and then I want to be able to judge whether that's good or not. Because if there's only soft stuff, it will not help me develop the object in any way. It will just dull down everything, and that's not, eventually is going to be a boring object because of that. Well, let's see. Sometimes you just do some lines. So do away with the sketch. This is what we did. In case you forgot, we had a version before. That was this version. Now let's compare it to the new version. I guess the new version is more compelling. So we went from here to here. It's not to say that we're done with this, but yeah, we made progress, I would say. Also now, once we decide that we like this, it's the same thing. I'm doing the same thing again. Deleting this. And then I just combine this, boom. And now that is my layer. And even though it might be shocking to you, I don't care. I decided it's better, therefore I keep it. And that's it. If you always have the option to go back, it will take up all of your time, and you will end up sitting there not doing anything, and then just wondering, oh, do I keep this? Do I not keep this? Is this is this better? I don't know. Yeah, and then you're lost, because then you're not doing anything anymore. You're not making any decisions anymore. What you need to do is new layer, new try, new experiment, and then decide again if you keep that or not. And you do that until you can decide, basically, whether you want to or not. That is how it's going to be. Just letting you know right now. I still have options here. For example, I still can select this object from the layer of the two objects, and now I can see whether I want more contrast or I want the bright part to be brighter, because that's the feeling I'm getting now, is that, oh yeah, it's looking okay, but it's dull. It's because if this is metal, it should reflect something brighter than what it is right now. So therefore, I don't want it to get darker in the dark parts because of atmospheric perspective. However, I want it to be brighter in the bright parts. So of course we can manage that. Somewhat like this. But here you can see now that this is getting very close to the tone of the mountain. There is still, of course, color to come, so we have to take that into consideration. But let's just see how bright we can get away with it. So if I counter this, now what happens is, do you see how the dullness disappears? And then over here, I'm showing you this with my finger, but you cannot actually see my fingers. Over here, now this looks much more like it reflects the sky. It's just that little bit duller, but if it were to reflect the sky, it would look certainly like this and not like this, right? So this color comes from a time when I did not know whether I wanted this to reflect, to be a reflective material or not. But of course this changes everything, because look at the water. Water reflects the sky, and now kind of the same amount as the water reflects the sky, the metal also reflects the sky. It is duller, it is still distinguishable, but it is believable now that this reflects that. And then on the flip side, over here, it reflects more of those mid-tones that are down here and that are in that mountain. So whatever we look straight at this will reflect the mountain side. And then that's also believable. And then we have the darker parts, which are basically indents, and we can also lift those darker parts, by the way. Then of course I need to counter this again. So we still made it a little bit darker. And you have to play around with this a little bit. This is not the easiest thing. But now finally we can see that we made this much more reflective by not making these areas much darker. So that is what we have to be careful about. If I would have made them darker, it's not the end of the world, because once I hit OK, I can just transparently paint over them again and bring them up, bring tonality back to be less dark, right? So it's not the end of the world. let's see how far this is pushable. And also what you want here is to look at the small thing, because the small thing now needs to work. This is much more telling than the big version. This says I'm metal compared to this, and I'm metal compared to the sky, then we have a winner. If not, so this, see how now this looks totally like not integrated for what we decided, it being metal and all. So yeah, we want something like this. And then I can go a little bit darker in the mids, but not too much, because this needs to look like it's reflecting the surrounding. And then there's a lot of lake, a lot of blues. And down here it's a different story, because everything is cramped up more, everything is more organic, and everything is more light absorbent, whereas this is light is reflecting light. So if I look here, I see what I want, I hit OK, and that will be it. So now we dramatically changed this ship, but you can see that it actually makes a lot of sense. When you zoom in and out, there's still room for even brighter reflections and for artificial lighting that comes, like if I put a light here now that is white, you can still see it. So I did not destroy contrast to the degree where I basically overexpose stuff. Also, I did not underexpose, of course. We're not nowhere near black in the entire image, so that's a really good thing. But yeah, so we did some painting. We did a lot of painting. I did a lot of talking again. I wanted to show you how to introduce colors, but I'm just now realizing that this video is getting too long. So let's not do this. I will, off camera, paint a little bit more grayscale, but you see now how I do this and how you can do this. I'll paint more grayscale, be back next time, and then we're starting to inject color into this image and make it, yeah, make different choices, make choices about color. And then eventually we need to paint in color only. And that will then be, I would say, the last third of the painting process, to only paint in color. And after that, I'm sure this will be a separate video again, where I show you how to apply effects and atmospheric blending and little tricks that you can do to an image like that. So yeah, stay tuned, and yeah, I'll see you next time. So guys, I hope you liked this. And there were probably, you could feel this, that I didn't quite know where we would end up in part 2. And of course, it turns out, as always, as in class, or pretty much always, that you get less done, that you talk more than you thought, and that you get less done than you thought. And maybe this is a good thing, because I can then, in the new video in part 3, can show you how to put the color, and that will be the first thing that I address in the next part. So yeah, I hope you liked that painting process. My throat is getting sore. If you have anything to say about that, leave it in the comments. Also, let's meet up on Instagram if you want that. Shoot me an email if for anything else. And yeah, next time in part 3, we're talking about color. Pretty much color only, how to inject color into a grayscale image, and then how to proceed from there. So yeah, see you next time.